Welcome back to the Self-Indulgent podcast. I am your host, Mariah, and today we are just kind of gonna shoot the shit. I am liking this kind of free approach I got going on. I think in my first year of podcasting, I tend to overplan, I think, and like put myself in a box. Now I haven't really been doing any planning, just knowing that I'm filming today and whatever comes up, comes up. I'm enjoying this more laxed vibe with you all. Before we get started, let me set the intentions for today's episode. My intention today is to address some things and speak on some things that are really hitting a lot of us right now, and to just be honest and speak my truth and hopefully provide a safe space for you all to feel connected and validated in some of the feelings that you're feeling. My intention is to love myself, be kind to myself, take my time. So, what I want to start off with is I think last week I kind of mentioned the craziness. Actually, I don't think I did now that I think about it. I think I briefly talked about what happened with TikTok and then did not talk about everything else. It does feel like we're in a dumpster fire. It is a very hard time. I totally dissociated after November and forgot what the reality of the world was for a good month. So that was nice. I think, well, the 2 weeks after election day, I was pretty crashed out, to be honest. And then we slowly climbed out of that. We kind of dissociated from the fact that things would be changing in January in a serious way on Martin Luther King Day. Hit hard, and there's just been so much. We have been inundated with like just an absurd, we trying to up the vocab, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's just been a crazy time, and it's just been too much. After inauguration day for me was very uncomfy, feeling very like, what the fuck? Like, what do I do? Like, what do we do? And then feeling like things are just really big, feeling very macro, like, whoa, how do we tackle this on a large scale? It did feel like we need to take big action, big action. And so it has been helpful to hear some takes on, like, also can you focus on a micro level? There are micro things you could do to start deconstructing and creating a different type of society. I want to take that approach today in kind of leading into some of the other stuff that I talk about, right? This is the Self-Indulgent podcast, and we often talk about relationship to self, right? And I think there are ways to talk about that when thinking about what's happening right now, the type of life you want to live, the type of society you want to live in, and connect that to self and self-work. And there are ways to do that. So today's episode, I want to talk about deconstruction on an individual level. If we all are individually deconstructing, it's going to have larger effects, right? It's just a little work here and there that can be really helpful. Also, sidebar, there's a water heater being replaced downstairs, so you might hear some things. I'm going to try my best to edit out anything that comes through, but the mic is pretty good, so we'll see what happens. I want to talk about how deconstruction on an individual level and more micro things that can be done in community can help give back some control, because this is going to feel out of control for probably some time. We need to figure out how you can feel back in control so you don't crash out, so we don't continue to crash out, because it is hard right now. It is very painful right now what is happening, and I have no other words to describe it. It is very hurtful, painful, harmful. I urge you guys, before we get into all this, to continue to educate yourself. Deconstruction that can happen in doing that and taking charge of that, right? Social media is great, right? I've learned a lot from social media, and like well, depending on the TikTok specifically's algorithm, I have found to be very in line, right, with the way that I think, the way my values. But I think it's important to also reclaim your education in a way that is not run by an algorithm, and to find things that really speak to you. Like for me right now, I am reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I think it is really important for us to lean into the wisdom of those who were in the thick of the civil rights movement during that time, because one, when I think about, like, I realized that the last time I was really taught or learned about things that took place during those years, which was not that fucking long ago, was in elementary, middle, and high school. You think they was teaching us everything that we need to be taught? No. Absolutely not. We know this. They're back to talking about banning books. So we know that we were not taught everything we need to. And that's across the board, really, for most topics, or to set us up for adulthood and to live in society. That's part of the problem. And so I just, history repeats itself. So I think it is helpful to look at that time period and to come back to that type of wisdom and everything that was learned. I'm very privileged to be living in this time. And, there's like people are calling the modern Jim Crow, right? Like, again, history repeats itself. So there's lots of modern versions of things. And yet I am very privileged, and even in being able to do this way and talk and spread my message and try to reach people all over and have the equipment to do so and to be safe in my house, like, just lots of privilege. When we think about that time period specifically, they went through the ringer in a way that I will never be able to understand. And then there are, of course, there are things that we're experiencing and witnessing that are extremely painful, and I'm very fortunate. There are some that are being immediately impacted by this new administration in very painful ways. What can I do to continue to learn and reclaim my education in a way that speaks to me? I think there's another book called Black. I added it to my list. I think it's called Black Aliveness. And that's another book that I really want to read. These are things that are starting to speak to me in this time. So lean on what speaks to you. Don't feel like you have to read all the books in the next few months and just be done. No. Like, take your time, lean into what resonates, lean into what you can do. That's my little spiel on that. Now, I want to talk more about what deconstructing can look like and how you can do things on micro levels that help you take some power back, help your communities without it feeling like, oh, this is so big, like, how are we going to end it all? And so you can continue to take care of yourself and start to feel like you and connect to what's important to you. Somebody made a really good point on TikTok. I'll have to add their name here because I don't remember it off the top of my head. I want to Miss X Tina maybe, or something like that. I'll plug it here. And they made a really good point about people wanting to do these volunteers and protests and everything is so big, but what about what we can do that's small, right? So they made the comparison of, you're worried about all these really big things. Did you Venmo back your friend that was unemployed that paid your lunch that one time? Maybe you don't need to Venmo request that when you know your friend is struggling for money. I know we're all struggling for money, but there are just ways that we can support each other. Maybe you can buy groceries for a friend this week if you got it and they don't. Like, the reason why I think it speaks to deconstruction, right, is because aside from just like being revolutionary, if that's the type of society you would want to live in, why not start embodying that for yourself? Right? So I think that can look like, and does look like, yeah, if I got it this week, I'm going to buy my friend groceries. I know they're going through it, right? That type of attitude and tone and energy, talk about raising your vibration, but that type of attitude and energy is how you deconstruct, right? Because that's not something people are doing necessarily right now. I have a friendship that I think that would be like that for me, but the way we can create community and understanding and have our backs, like neighbors' backs and things like that, is through those small moments and those small things. I think that can start to break down a lot of things, right? If you want a better society, if you want your society to operate better in these healthier ways, in loving, caring community, then you can start that way. Very small. Like, why not take your friend to the airport? You know what I mean? These small things can save money. There are these small things that we can do on a micro level and give back to each other that I think is really powerful. I think it's really powerful. And when you think about, well, I never thought about it like that. I wouldn't think to do it like that. Of course not, because that's not how we're being brought up in this society. There may have been a time for it. And when things get harder, people tend to seek out community and try to come together more and support each other more. So this is the perfect time for you to start practicing some of those things on a more micro level. It doesn't have to be super big. Next, I want to talk about this unconscious programming and how it really is impactful, and why I think I have a podcast like this. It becomes so apparent how important deprogramming is. I have a podcast like this largely because when I became more like my first level of like, whoa, I'm waking up. I'm becoming more conscious and more aware of what's happening in my life, these patterns, things I don't agree with, like the first awakening, if you will. It was so pivotal. Life has been hard and beautiful since then. Awareness and reflection really allowed for deeper awareness to the point where it was like, I can't be the same anymore. I can't do the same anymore. I can't play in this simulation with y'all no more. It's been hard because you have to navigate all these things. It is scary to be aware because you're dealing with waking up. You recognize patterns all of a sudden and you become aware, and you're just like, whoa, how have I been living? It can feel isolating at first, right? Because you tend to be the company that you keep. Then you're like, oh, now I'm seeing certain things in the people around me and recognizing, oh, we're all living in this programmed state from childhood and the time that we grew up in. That's why I try to hold as much empathy and grace as possible for people. We all grow up differently, and it's like either you become aware or you don't. Ignorance is bliss for those people, and it's painful for those who are more aware. And there's always more awareness to be had. You're not just going to wake up one day and be like, oh, I've reached the highest level of consciousness. You're going to continue to experience life as a human, so you're going to always have stuff to unpack. Like, you're always going to have stuff to fight against, and some of that programming is going to be there. It's up to you to consciously choose not to go to that default, and hopefully over time start to override a new kind of default. I urge you to keep that in mind as you engage in conversation with people who are challenging you or your beliefs. Just keep that in mind, right? They are somewhere else in their journey. They have their own stuff to do. You can take the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I think that's what can be really isolating in this type of world and space. Honestly, is probably part of the reason I started this podcast, to try to find community, spread the word, hear from like-minded people and just like what their experience is like, and to learn from each other. I love hearing your guys' thoughts and how you're seeing things because it helps me as well. Finding ways to protect your energy during this time is going to be really important, and to just take account of how you're feeling and what's coming up for you. Get it out somehow, whether that be journaling, a rage room, screaming in your pillow, whether that be crashing out for a week, whether that be crying it out, whether that be through movement, body movement, taking control of other things you could take control over. I have had some of the best lifts these last few weeks than I have in a very long time, probably a year. And it's something I feel like I can control. I can control it. It feels good. I feel powerful. So lean into those things. That's how you're going to keep your sanity during this time. I think this is a time where mantras can actually be really helpful. And I know for some people, like, or affirmations, mantras, whatever you like to call it. And the point is not to just be in this like positive psychology space or act positive and it'll all go away. That's not what I'm saying. That's not realistic. However, when we also think about overriding and deconstructing and deprogramming, you have automatic thoughts. You often repeat the same thoughts every day because of your environment. You're throughout a week, you're likely in similar environments, seeing similar people, having similar conversations, and being in similar energies all week. If that's the case, and you have over 10,000 thoughts a day, Why not try to override some of that? Some of it is so automatic that it is controlling your behavior, view, and how you see things. And it's affecting your frequency, your vibration, the things you attract. And then we wonder why we feel miserable all the time. This is where I think thought work and mind work can work. I know I've been talking a lot about the body recently, and it's still very important, right? Because those are stuck points that you have to address. When you feel like nothing is working and you feel trapped, you have to address that. Yeah, so we're wondering why we're all miserable all the time. And it's like the body work is important, the nervous system regulation is important. And I think in conjunction, we need to be doing body work and thought work, right? Because you're so automatically programmed that, yeah, we can do the body work and release some of these things and release energy, but those automatic thoughts creep back up, and who knows, it can deregulate you. I do think dispelling some of the energy via the body will help dispel some of the automatic thoughts, because they kind of go hand in hand. People argue chicken or the egg. Do you get the feeling first and then the thoughts, or do you have the thoughts and then the feeling? I think it doesn't really matter, because you need to do both. Both need to be happening. Breath work, mindfulness, meditation, somatic practices, yoga, just there's lots of different body work. We've talked about some of this before. Deep rest, sensory deprivation, all of those things can help regulate the nervous system. The thought it can be crucial and in this deconstructing and deprogramming, because you're going to have these automatic tendencies and these automatic thoughts that repeat every day. Oftentimes, a lot of that is negative. And if it is negative, it's bringing down your vibration. You're in a lower vibrational state. You're going to feel more hopeless. You're going to feel more helpless. Solutions to problems are going to feel impossible when you're kind of at that lack, like that vibrational lack and negative vibes. So while the sun is coming out, the sun will come out tomorrow. Give yourself grace. There's always going to be highs and lows to everything. You're not going to feel amazing every day, but talking about mantra is helpful because it can help pull you out of that. Self-work is important. If you hate yourself, how are you going to tackle fighting the system? Fighting a society in which you don't like how it's maneuvering and operating right now. How are you going to do that if you from a state of lack? You can't. You already feel helpless. So I think finding ways to be kind to self, so you can show up for yourself, so you could show up for friends, families, and community. Start locally, but you need to be in a place of abundance to be able to give more, or at least try to raise that vibration a little higher. I know it's hard because of the things that are happening. So what I have been telling myself, my friend Noon recommended this book based on some of the things I was saying about how torturous my mind gets. He recommended the book, How to Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. I have been really enjoying the book. It has been really helpful to me. I'm not done with it. I wanted to start small, and I wanted to take some of the practices and start doing it every day before I get into more of the book so I can really sit with it. What I've been doing is repeating, I love myself. I love myself. It does not matter if you believe it or not. And this is where I've had the hardest concept of understanding of oh, just because you say it doesn't mean anything. Girl, you know words are strong. What are you talking about? Words are powerful. Words are fucking powerful. If you have not read The Four Agreements, you should. It was a great book. And it talked about how powerful words are. We need to be very intentional about the wording we use because it leaves impact. There's definitely weight and power in it. Finding ways to fight back the automatic programming, right? So when I say I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, there are times where I do feel it, I start to feel it. And then there are some times where I don't feel it as much, and that's okay. But what it's doing is stopping the other automatic unconscious thoughts. It helps override it. I kind of break up the negative thought patterns with it. And it kind of brings me down, not for nothing. This probably sounds really ridiculous, but I was driving. I've had bad road rage, and I'm trying to work on it because it's not worth it. And it's just why am I allowing myself to get emotionally charged that way? It's just not good for me. It definitely lowers my vibration. And how can I show up with love if I'm still being triggered on the road? Obviously, there are certain situations that require a little bit more aggression. That's what I said. Aggression. but it's not really helpful in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, I was driving yesterday back from the gym, and something happened where I think somebody wasn't letting me in and then was honking at me or something like that because one of the lanes was closed. And I got upset. Like, I felt myself activated, irritated, anger, grr. And I cut that and was like, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. And it actually calmed me down. It did not let the feeling get stronger. It stopped it in its tracks. And I think like that is, this is, it's a, I don't know if it helps to think about it like this in this different way, but like I think that this is how powerful mantras can be, right? Like, I'm working to override automatic thought processes. I'm working to create a pattern where when I'm feeling negative emotion, I come back to self and I'm like, I got you. I love you. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself, right? If I can override and that be the default programming, can you imagine what life would be like? He talks about that for him in his book. He did this for a month and he would see drastic changes in his life and the things around him. I think the reason things around you start to change, the more you love yourself, the more confident you are, is because that's the vibrational frequency that you are giving off. That is the energetic frequency that you are giving off. And so I think it's so important to talk about this during this time because we're not going to be able to fight anything from a place of lack. The more we can empower and take care of ourselves, the more we can show up, the better we feel. We don't have to feel miserable and helpless through all of this because that's what they want. We can't do anything from that state. That's what they want. We can't come together. We can't be in love. We can't love each other. I don't know. I'm starting to feel this blend of MLK and Malcolm X. I'm understanding both, and I am excited to deep dive more into them as well. And I think another piece of this, right? And so what else the I love myself has been able to help me do, one, this overriding of negative emotion or these automatic thought patterns that end up affecting my day, right? I have been very restricted and limited. I feel like I live in a box in my own head sometimes, and I just trap myself. I trap myself. And so, like, for example, this morning, I've had a lot of resistance sometimes doing this podcast, which is crazy because I love doing it. Once I get in front of the camera, it's over. I actually really love doing this. Last year, I was showing up in a space of like, oh, I should talk about that. Not that the ideas and concepts I was talking about I wasn't interested in, but I felt like I needed to know it all. I needed to be able to give you guys tangible steps and teach you, but I felt so unqualified to be doing that and like did not find the value in my own words. So it made it hard to show up. I'll still have moments where the automatic thought will be, I don't feel like doing this today. I don't feel like doing this today. I woke up this morning and I'm like, fuck, I did not prepare for today. I don't know what I'm doing today. I did not set up my equipment ahead of time, so now I have to do all that. I have some appointments later today. If I don't get moving, maybe today's not the day. Maybe I could just do it tomorrow. What I told myself and what I've been doing, and I'm starting to really understand the power of getting ready, getting dressed, feeling good about myself, doing a little makeup. I'm probably never going to be the person to get up 2 hours earlier just to do a full beat and get dressed. I love sleep. So that probably won't happen, but enough to be able to do a little something. And so when I had laid in bed, I was on TikTok. I was like, fuck, what am I doing? Then I started listening to a TikTok that I was like, I like the way she's thinking. And then I was like, oh, I was like, well, let's just start with your hair. Like, let's just do a slick back. We're going to do a slick back today. A little claw clip moment, little slick back, slick back. Low stakes, very low stakes, right? And then from there, I continued listening to the video because there's this educational revolution going on TikTok, if you're not aware, where a lot of Black creators are coming out with like Finance 101, African Studies 101. What else have I seen? Sign language 101. Just amazing. It's amazing. I'm absolutely obsessed and loving it. I was listening to her and I decided, okay, let's start with a sit back. And then I was like, okay, skincare, right? I already started feeling better and I was just doing it. I was distracting the automatic thoughts. Before I started playing that, when I got in front of my vanity, it was like, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself in my head, right? I'm trying to scare away or at least minimize and quiet and override the negative thoughts that psych me out to doing the things that I actually do want to do. Because you're not always going to have the feeling, right? I did not feel like it this morning. It was helpful to not let my mind just run with that. Like, don't let it run with that. Don't let it run with, it was just a thought, and it will consume you and be so repetitive. Take control over the thought. I started there, and then I was like, okay, makeup, let's do a little something. And then I felt good. I looked for clothes and I was like, that's hot. I feel hot in this. We did that. Then it was just like, okay, let's set up the equipment. Let's just make your coffee and set up the equipment and see what happens. And so we did that. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself, right? Like, so still continuing to pop those things in and just doing the things, starting to distract my mind by doing the things, just setting it up. And then I sat here and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to, everything was set up, and I sat here and I was like, I don't know what to talk about. Just scrolling on TikTok. Maybe I'll find some inspiration. It'll get me thinking that way. Because I already felt good. I was like, I feel good now. I feel woken up. I feel very confident right now. So we're going to work with this regardless of how this episode turns out. And so I say all of that to say how powerful thoughts are, words are, and how automatic and programmed a lot of it is. A lot of it is unconscious and programmed and automatic in your default that you don't even know. And so it has been instrumental. And it's a slow change as well to see the effects of like, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. And just like doing the small things that kind of help boost my confidence, right? And like, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself, right? Like it really has set me up for success. Like I feel good. And it's just flowing. It's just like, wow, I didn't have to think about this. And I'm shocked myself every week. And I got to remind myself every week, like, you'll figure it out. It's fine. And you're a yapper. So it's fine. Like, and it has been really freeing to do it in this way and to trust self, right? I'm learning how to trust self again through this as well. So I just urge you guys to take a lot of your power back, continue to try to raise your frequency. The point is not to ignore what's happening in this world and to just dissociate from it entirely and act like everything's fine and just speak love and positivity all the time. Like, that's not the point. But the point is that this is your life. If you are called to take more action, do that, but also take care of yourself and do it from a place of love and abundance. If you can't right now, we can slowly find ways to raise your frequency and vibration and love for yourself so that you can show up for others, lead by example, and model for others that we can do this and be there for each other. There's so much power in that, right? You know, community and connection and coming together has always been important in these revolutionary, you know, times. And also just like full permission to protect your energy during this time as well. So it doesn't matter what that looks like. If it does look like disconnecting from what's going on a little bit and zoning out for a little bit, if that's what you have to do to reset and remove yourself from it, then that's fine. Detachment is another piece here that we did not talk about. And I will probably talk about detachment in a different episode because it's something that is hard. Like surrendering and letting go and detachment is fucking hard. I actually just released a newsletter on my Substack. If you want to sign up, just type your email in that little box so you can get my weekly newsletters. I talked about surrender, letting go, and some of the concepts we talked about today are in there. Detachment is fucking hard. It all comes back to how we've been conditioned in programs and how we've been living our lives. I've been living my life a very specific way for the last 26 years. I probably didn't really wake up for the first time until, what year was that? It was like 20, I started, stuff started to shift for me 2019. So I was 19 plus 2 is 20, I was 21. It's 21. So that's 21 years of just life happening to me and just taking on what I've known to be true based on how I was raised, based on the school I went to, the friends I had, the media that I had. So that's a lot of programming that's already taken place. Hard to surrender, let go, and detach is my point there. But we'll talk about detachment at some point. I think that's all I got for today. I hope that that was helpful. I know that when I don't plan specifically, it kind of gets a little all over the place. So I hope that that was helpful. And I'd love to continue the conversation and how you guys are thinking about all this and safe, open space, right? So if people are in the comment sections acting reckless and you feel like you can't share your truth, I will be deleting those comments, aggressive comments and things like that. You don't have to worry about it. Safe space, safe, open space. I want to hear your thoughts and feelings. I really urge you guys to take care of yourself, take care of each other, especially in your immediate circles when you can and where you can. They want us to feel hopeless. I think the ways that we can start to shift that collectively is by taking back our individual power as well. And the more you fill your cup, you can pour into others, and that's how you start to see change and your power. Eventually, we start touching the macro stuff. Yeah, okay. Thank you guys so much. If you are listening to this on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, please give me a 5-star review if you enjoyed this episode and leave a comment, follow, turn those notifications on. And if you are watching this on YouTube, thank you for 300 subscribers. That is a huge deal. It is a huge milestone. And last week we released our 30th episode, which I didn't realize when I was filming it, but last week was our 30th episode and 300 subscribers on YouTube. So I'm very grateful and thank you guys so much. If you are new here and you like today's episode, subscribe, go check out some of the other episodes, leave a comment, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.